Well, Moody's upgraded India, but S&P has decided to stick with the rating that it had given India in 2016. It's investment grade with a stable outlook. The government has welcomed S&P, affirming its stable outlook. Top ministers believe S&P, though, has been on the conservative side. Let's start with Railway Minister Piyush Goyal, who spoke with our colleague Ashpreet Sethi. Then we've got Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu joining us, as well as a whole host of other experts.
Very extremely delighted that Standard & Poor has chosen to affirm their ratings. They have chosen to affirm the stable outlook for Government of India, and in the report have profusely praised the efforts of the Moody government, have mentioned almost across the report about different measures that the Government of India has taken for strengthening the long-term economic prospects of the economy. They have predicted that growth will continue to remain strong in the years ahead. They have predicted that India has a very sound external position today, and it will continue to remain sound in the days ahead. And they have, by and large, reaffirmed that they expect fiscal deficit to be in line with expectation. On the other side, in terms of rationale for reaffirming the rating, they've said India has consistently had strong GDP growth. They recognize the fact that this quarterly setback for a couple of quarters is largely related to the GST. And their own assessment is that such transformational initiatives taken in a short span of time, despite not having a majority in the Rajya Sabha. The GST they have praised, banking sector reform, insolvency code, recognition of the true NPAs, bank recapitalization, the fact the energy sector reforms have been mentioned twice in the report, the fact that it is easier today to do business in India has been highlighted in the report. They have very strongly spoken about increased lending in the days ahead because of the stronger banking position post recapitalization. The ambitious public expenditure on infrastructure, particularly in roads and railways, has been profusely praised, again twice in the report. Public investment coupled with private consumption, they have assessed will lead to much stronger growth in the 2018 to 20 period, where they have predicted the growth to exceed all expectations that most people have had of late.
Right, so, but while we are talking about growth, there is also a warning given that the downward pressure, if fiscal deficit rises considerably, also the downward pressure if GDP growth disappoints. So what do you have to say about the warning given by S&P?
But that's a very standard caveat that every rating agency puts to its report. It's not only about sovereign, it's about any rating. If you will look at any rating, after the broad guidelines of what is the rating, they always had this caveat that these are the things that should be watched out for. So even Moody's, when it upgraded, they spoke about the fact that the debt to GDP ratio will be watched. Though my own personal view is that it's a very unfair comparison. Our debt to GDP ratio is only 68%, whereas Japan is 240%. Even the United States is 104% debt to GDP. I think in most of these rating agencies have a different outlook for developed economies and for developing economies. And that bias is there across the rating system. In fact, even this report speaks about India's GDP and per capita income being low, and mentions that India has probably got the lowest per capita income for the countries for which they provide rating. So the very fact that they recognize India as an emerging and growing economy and that the future looks bright is the reason that they continue to watch India very carefully. So I think those caveats are areas which this government at least stands committed to maintaining in terms of improving debt to GDP ratio, in terms of fiscal consolidation so that the fist does not, the deficits don't rise, in terms of promoting public investment so that the economy does better in the years ahead, and to continue on the path of economic reform, irrespective of short-term setbacks, because we do believe we are preparing the Indian economy for a very bright and glorious long-term future.
So then let me end by asking, do you still say that S&P is being conservative? Are you drawing a comparison with Moody's here?
I would not necessarily say that. That's the historical perspective of Standard & Poor. For those of you who are watching the economy and economic ratings across the world, you'll be aware that Moody's is always the first of the block. In fact, if you look back in history, Moody's was the first in 2003, on 3rd February 2003, giving India an upgrade, followed quickly by a second upgrade on 22nd January 2004. And then Fitch followed 1 year later. They gave us an upgrade on 21st January 2004, followed by an upgrade on 1st August 2006 with a 1 year gap. And S&P had an even longer gap. S&P upgraded on 2nd February 2005 and 30th January 2007. So traditionally, S&P has been always conservative. And frankly, I didn't expect anything to change so quickly there.